And with this, I have an honor to move our program to third session, which is titled as Artificial Intelligence, AI in Cybersecurity and Hacking. And we have three distinguished speakers from business world. Mr. Robert Jones, he's President and CEO of PReSafe Technologies. Mr. Alejandro Suarez, from Customer Success Manager from IIRISK, originally from Spain company, but headquartered in US in Atlanta. And then Mr. Ravi Venkatesan, he's Chief Operating Officer of Cantaloupe Inc., again, based in Atlanta, and in dealing with these technologies on a day-to-day basis. These companies will share their ideas and thoughts about AI in cybersecurity and hacking. And I invite Robert Jones to go first. Robert.
Okay, great. I want to thank you, Ani, and you as well, Dr. McIntyre, and certainly you, Dr. Canada. You have my slide deck available?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and launch that. I promise you'll hear some new things in my presentation, but clearly the collective professionals here that you've heard thus far, we share a common body of knowledge and experiences. And so it's reassuring to know that we're all in the same area with the same understanding about what's going on. So next slide. I'm going to talk to you today about artificial intelligence and cybersecurity and hacking. And my aim is to make sure that A, you come away with increased awareness, B, you have some takeaways, and C, I ignite your curiosity to learn more. It's safe to say, so I'm going to jump right in here. It's safe to say that if we look back to the 60s, DARPA, through a series of projects in the 60s, they created the internet. Those projects resulted or culminated in the creation of the internet. Fast forward 50 years, and the internet, as well as computing, has become tightly woven into the fabric of our lives. And it's clear that what we have been doing to protect that environment, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the environment from the 50s till now has had to change. So here in 2016, DARPA stepped up, and the statement is before you. The need for automated, scalable machine speed vulnerability detection and patching was needed because today, the process of finding and countering bugs, hacks, and other cyber threats is effectively artisanal. So what did they do? DARPA organized the Grand Cyber Challenge, and it was the first time that algorithms were put to use, or among the first times algorithms were put to use in a capture the flag tournament instead of humans. And there was some 3.75 million in prize awards, and the technical teams competed to do that. So we were entering a new era where it wasn't about people, it was about machines coming to our aid. Next slide. You've heard this information about the breaches and such. I won't go into much detail, but the aim here was to set the stage. And upper left-hand corner, our breach volume has reached the billions level. You heard it earlier, 20 billion in the first half of 16 billion in the first half of 2020. But some of the individual companies have had breaches of alone themselves at that billion magnitude level. And as you can see, it covers everything. River City was a spamming operation. You've got biometrics that were hacked at Adihard. You've got social media. Cineverse was the former GTE, which is critical infrastructure. It's all over. The SolarWinds hack, the ones on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm pointing to them because they're a watershed moment for us. We now are embracing that word, cybersecurity supply chain risk management. If you look back 3 years ago, you weren't hearing that. You're hearing that now. And that's very important because it's forcing us to look across a variety of components, to recognizing that they're integrated and that they contribute to the functionality of the whole. I'm going to dive down to the Log4j breach. And the new piece I want to add there is that that Log4j is so dangerous because it doesn't take a whole lot to exploit the vulnerability. It's not something that requires much sophistication to pull off. And so with that, we reached the point where we must go beyond finding and patching vulnerabilities to immediately detecting the most subtle anomalies. Next slide. I am pleased to hear that one of my colleagues did mention this breach that does not get the press, and so I'm happy to be reiterating again. There's a glaring trend in global threat, and that is a business email compromise and its companion email account compromise. The only difference in the business email account compromise is business related. Email account compromise is singular. The threat or the approach is for the threat actor to compromise the victim, trick them into sending some money somewhere, and the aim is to get to that money before the law enforcement can stop the process. Make sure you know that business email compromise typically occurs on Friday. It typically occurs on Friday because that window gives the threat actors the time to get to the funds that have been transferred and take it out of the financial institutions and into their crime networks. So you can see the direct transfer, the second hop transfer. And what I have down at the bottom left of the screen is the the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center report. It's published every year. Within that report, we'll find that business email compromise and email account compromise is a $2.3 billion loss type. It's the number one loss in that report. I want everybody listening to take a look at that report, get that report, share it with your leadership, get it into the hands of the C-suite. Ideally, get it into the hands of the board. It's going to help you to do your job and help them to understand what this risk is. It's pretty plain and simple. And again, the data's all there. Next slide. Next slide. So we all know that where there are problems, the engineer in us tells us there are opportunities. And AI is an innovation opportunity. We want to harness the machines to act like humans in order to mitigate cyber threats in the face of this dramatically increasing complexity since the 1960s. So with that, let me talk about what artificial intelligence is all about. It's a broad science it's a broad science of mimicking behavior, problem solving, learning, planning, and it's achieved through analyzing data in order to replicate those behaviors. A couple of fields are associated or subsets in artificial intelligence. Robotics is one of them. Machine learning and natural language processing are also some, and they are two of the ones that readily apply to cybersecurity. So what is machine learning? Well, it's a subset of the subset of AI that trains the machine to learn new skills, right? To learn knowledge and gain new skills, right? To acquire knowledge and gain new skills. That's the definition of learning. What it's good at, it's very good at effectively processing large amounts of data using these algorithms that improve over time. And therefore we can use these, we can readily use machine learning to spot anomalies and identify patterns that then humans can address. You'll hear the concept deep learning. That simply relates to the layers of processing that take place in a machine learning model. So of course, there are more layers. The deeper you go, the word deep learning. The bottom, natural language processing. Natural language processing is that subset of AI that deals with or focuses on the ability of the computer to understand human language as it's written and spoken. So we now have a tool set that can come to our aid. What I want to do now is look at some of the advantages that we can gain with the use of AI. Here they are. There's three areas that I'm really keen on. Our aim here is to identify, isolate, and remediate cyber threats quickly. The first one, faster threat detection and prevention. So with AI in the mix, we can accelerate new threat detection using these algorithms. Again, trained to spot anomalies and identify patterns. You heard earlier also this behavioral analysis. Well, it's heuristic analysis versus signature file comparison. In days of old, you just looked to see that two things were comparable. With heuristic analysis, you're looking to see, how does this thing behave? And is it unusual behavior? Are there commands in there that suggest that this file is going to take some sort of action? Heuristic analysis will enable us to thus limit the impact of these zero-day vulnerabilities because they're all different. Something I'm really excited about is the ability to correlate global and industry-specific threats with asset inventories to better prioritize and project what's likely to occur. So now what you're able to do is have this AI in the environment searching around, think of automated threat hunting, and it's saying, hey, well, I've got a lot of this, I got a lot of that, and there's some industry specific, there's some global threats and industry specific threats. Hey, that sets creates a condition where this is likely to, X is likely to occur. What that does is allows the departments, the teams with limited resources, and certainly either in money or people, to focus on those areas that are likely to have the greatest impact. So we're now gaining benefit from this intelligence. Next area, automated attack reduction. Whoa, no, not the next slide. Go back. Can you go back? Yeah, another area, automated attack reduction. You don't hear a whole lot about distributed denial of service attacks, but they're still happening, and they're happening at terabyte level speeds, and they're shutting sites down. Back in 2016, we might remember the denial of service here on the East Coast that shut down Dime, a DNS service provider, and it impacted everything. I mean, everything that was reliant, well, everything is reliant on some domain name service functionality. And the fact that Dine was down, everything else that needed to resolve through Dine was suffered. So with our AI in the mix, we can go ahead and establish baseline performance across networks, enabling us to distinguish human traffic, good bots like search engines, and safe domains from bad bots and DNS poisoning attacks, where, again, the threat actor is trying to intercept your DNS request, give you some false information that directs your subsequent activity to them where nefarious action can take place. I'm really excited about this last area, improved identity and access management. You're more now able to rapidly assess login and access risks based on correlations among a variety of characteristics. It could be time of day, it could be biometric information, your location, your ISP, device characteristics, your access behavior. Have you accessed these particular assets in the past with any degree of frequency? The aim there is to achieve continuous authentication. We just heard a bit about IoT and industrial control systems. We're going to have a tsunami. I won't use the explosion word. We're going to have a tsunami of devices coming our way. It will be crucial to achieve continuous authentication if we're ever going to realize zero trust. We're going to have to do that. And it's far more than what people can do. These devices, they're small, but there are many of them, and they may not even have the resources on board, either in computing or memory for software, to give us a lot of information. But we're going to have to figure out how to achieve continuous authentication across this vast enterprise. Next slide.
Robert, I'm sorry, we are running out of time now. So
okay. Well, let's do this. Let's go to two or three slides earlier. Get to adversarial AI. All right. The most concerning piece of this is adversarial AI, where the data is manipulated. There are techniques to manipulate the data and to cause the models to behave in unanticipated or undesired ways. And machine learning does not share the same sensitivities as humans. So researchers are working on techniques to mitigate, and that's good news. Next slide. I want you to take a look at this National Security Commission report on artificial intelligence. The place to see it is down at the bottom. It's got a lot of information in it. It features some of the things that are listed in the slides there. Last slide. And here's some more interesting stuff. There's two videos here that I want you to take a look at. The first one, or the one on the right, is the one I'd start with. It's Dr. Rodney Brooks. He's the founder of iRobot, and you're familiar with the Roomba vacuum. That was delivered at Bell Labs. It's an hour long. I was in the audience. It's a powerful, very powerful lecture. The other talks about the adversarial AI, and the last is an interesting article that just came out where hey, you've got people who were thinking that AI has come to life. We're headed in that direction. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very informative. I'm sure our audience will enjoy reading it more at their time. So with this, I thank you and invite Alejandro Suarez to please.
Sure.
Alejandro? Yep. All right.
Thank
I will
you.
keep up your presentation.
Oh, you're going to queue it up? Okay, I had it ready, but sure.
You can do it. No problem. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. Give me a moment here. Pleasure to meet you all. I am Alejandro Suarez, Customer Success Manager for IriusRisk for North America. And I have had some prior experience with AI-led network detection and response with another firm. If you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see exactly who it was. But what I wanted to talk about here is pivot a little bit to something that is near and dear to my heart right now, which is the concept of threat modeling. It's not new, but doing it at scale is. So with IriusRisk, threat modeling is the practice of, let's think about what we're designing, think about the threats we could address, and then build that into the software so that security is not an afterthought. Fundamentally, we're using Adam Shostak's 4-question framework. What are we building? What can go wrong? What are we going to do about it? And did we do a good enough job? Can be done across a whole host of different disciplines. We're more focused on application security because, frankly, it is humanly impossible to keep track of everything out there and do it in a cost-effective, repeatable manner. And the best time to think about security is to do it at the start of the design process. So when you're doing it manually, largely you've got security folks on one side who want safe code. And then you've got development folks on the other side who are heavily incented to provide fast code. And largely that's been a contentious relationship. When you have a platform that can help collect these artifacts from what usually is a multi-day process involving whiteboards, spreadsheets, and other documents, and centralize it in one place, what you end up doing is starting a much more collaborative conversation between security and design teams. And that's, that leads to much better outcomes for secure software and networks as well. Again, threat modeling, very general, but you can apply it to lots of different places. You see some of the points here. Manual analysis of threats is the hardest one because you have to ensure the expertise in the room. And also you have to make sure that your designs stay current. That's really hard without centralizing it. So what we've done at IriusRisk is provide a platform to enable that collaboration. And we have a fairly robust, rules engine behind how we analyze designs, bring in quite a few of your common standards in the CSF, OWASP Top 10. I've got a boatload more, but we also work with PCI DSS as well. And with this and our clients, we see quite a bit of return in terms of how quickly they are able to get models out, how secure their designs are, and what benefits they get from enabling that conversation between their security teams at the start versus handing over a project or having to do it afterwards. I'm trying to keep this quick because I know we've been running over, but that's basically this is our platform. Where it can go. I'm happy to answer questions about it, but I wanted to go ahead and give enough time because I know this is tangential to the AI hacking piece. But more that I wanted to say, please think about design at the start with your application security, and even with existing products. It is never too late to start threat modeling, and it is something that you will only get better at as you keep doing it. So I would highly encourage you to do so. 4 simple questions, regardless of what solution you end up wanting to use from a technology, even if it's manual, you will be in a much better space to think about security and shift it left in your organization. And I'm set there, Annie. Yeah, it's very quick, but yeah.
I would invite Ravi Venkatesan. Ravi.
Thank you, Ani. So I decided to change it a little bit and not do death by PowerPoint for a change. So what I'm going to do is leave you with three key trends that hopefully round out some of what you've heard today in this particular session, right? And the first one to remember, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of a COO, CEO perspective, because that's where I come from a lot of times when I look at what our CISO is doing and what our security teams are doing, as well as what our partners are doing. To give you a little context, we run a business where we have over 1 million IoT endpoints that also do payment processing. So think of the perfect storm in terms of a business that has a large blast radius or surface area. It doesn't get worse than that. What we have seen in this business is the trend with AI in terms of just cybersecurity overall, but also hacking, is it's become an arms race. The bad guys have it too. They have AI as well. So if they're getting more sophisticated in terms of how automated their attacks are and how much they're using AI to actually even detect the weak links in the chain, the onus is on us to then raise our defenses proportionally. And frankly, I would say it's impossible to totally eliminate somebody being able to attack you and somebody being able to find a weak spot. What is possible is being able to detect an attack very quickly, rapidly, and then isolate it and then restrict the loss or damage. That is possible with the appropriate AI tools. You don't have to build it all on your own. There are very good options that are now available. That's one thing. The second thing I want to leave you with is, again, this is more empirical observation. As the Ukraine war has started, what we've seen is almost a 30% uptick in attacks that are originating from Russia as well as Eastern Europe. And this is concerning for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is that there is a terrestrial war going on, but there's a shadow war going on, which most people don't even see, right? So you read the news and you hear about this territory got attacked and that region got attacked and this happened and that happened. But the average person has no insight into the war that's behind the war. And that's going on as well. And it is getting more and more sophisticated. So irrespective of what kind of business you have, and in the United States, we've seen trends where every single American business has got attacked almost 20-30% more from that region. So it doesn't matter whether you do business with Ukraine, you do business with Russia, whether you're in the appliances business or food products or technology, everybody's getting attacked. So that's the second thing to be aware of and to know that there is an increase. And again, if there are conversations happening about budgets and why spend more money, this is an area where you cannot spend enough right now to secure your business. The third thing I want to share is we've seen insurance costs skyrocket. And when I say skyrocket, if I compare it with 2019 numbers, we're looking at almost 70-80% increases. And when you think about such a severe increase, it becomes very critical for a business to find ways to mitigate that and to have the conversation and to go through those negotiations. And what we've found is that if you have a good SecOps practice, hopefully that ensures automated 24/7 threat hunting, threat detection, and possibly mitigation as well. And if you have a good set of tools that cover kind of the whole security onion, as you would call it, then you have a much better chance to go negotiate down your insurance costs. And that does need to be a focus of security professionals as well as CFOs and CEOs, frankly. And having an AI-based tool that is in your portfolio can significantly help in that conversation, speaking from personal direct experience. And then the final one I want to leave you with is we have incorporated, as part of our M&A process, looking at the security posture and tool set of companies. This used to not be the case earlier. It would all be financial diligence, this, that, and you would get the security side and you'd go through a few questions and do the basics. But now what we do is we use a combination of AI and OSINT. So get open source intelligence and AI and a combination of that to literally look at a view this is now no longer us sending questions to somebody and them answering and us either believing or disbelieving the answers. We are running tools to essentially get it's almost like a credit score, of a company's security capabilities and their posture. And this is another area where AI is becoming critical, because if you don't have that level of protection, it shows up on these reports. And Risk Recon is a great one. There are many others. I'd encourage you to look at those as well in terms of how do you show up if somebody else is going to run a report on your company. Right. So those are three things I wanted to leave you with. Again, to summarize, can't spend enough money right now. Arms race is on AI. The bad guys have it too. You have to think about insurance costs rising and what pitch you can provide to negotiate those down, and then think about your credit score equivalent, your security score as a company, and what happens when somebody pulls it, and what would they see. Okay, back to you, Ani.
Great, Ravi. Thank you. Thank you for summing it up very well as you are in trenches with other companies. So I have some questions, and thankfully we have some time. My first question, which I would like to ask panelists here, question is from Dr. McIntyre. Are threats differentiated by industry sector typically? What are your examples? So Alejandro, I'll start with you.
So the one that I've had the most experience with dealing with my customers is a recent mandate from the FDA with threat modeling medical devices. But we also have seen a lot more coming from the IoT environment with how to design how to threat model accurately for those handoffs between traditional OT devices and IT devices. That's a specific industry. It's basically a split, whether it's a piece of technology is operating a piece of equipment versus a piece of IT. Detection is, as Robert and Ravi mentioned, detection is paramount. Being able to do it at machine speed is paramount. There are lots of good options for that, but threat modeling it is, just again, thinking about it in design phase, or if you haven't done it, designing it out, even crudely, will go a long way. Robert, I see you came off mute, so I'll hand it to you there.
Oh, great. Well, again, if you look at industries where maybe the PII has some value, the medical industries, industries that are heavily dependent upon information, the legal industry, and the industries where regulation is heavy, those tend to be ripe for attacks. I won't say the government agencies aren't, right? I mean, of course, the DoD probably has its fair share of attacks, but if you think of something like business email compromise, that might not be the place that you look, right? I mean, there aren't a lot of employees that, outside of purchasing departments that have the ability to initiate the transfer of funds. So the industries that are regulated, they tend to be heavily targeted, and where there's a criticality. I mean, if there's an element of, hey, life and death, the threat actors are coming. They're looking for the money, and they need the urgency of life as an incentive in many cases. Over to you.
Okay, great. Ravi, your thoughts?
Well, what the one thing we've observed is that ransomware strains are literally different based on different types of businesses, and so are malware. So that just tells you that the targeting of specific types of attacks for specific types of businesses is happening, though there are also several attacks that are just, everybody's in the blast radius, right? So it's both kinds.
So my question to three of you is that, in case if we have a bad actor or bad country attacks US, okay, so we have a national government and army, US Army to defend us, and there are other forces, Now, in case of what do you have seen in your domain about the federal government is helping with businesses, and especially small to mid-sized companies who don't have wherewithal or capabilities of having sophisticated cybersecurity programs, because it's very expensive to run. Anybody can start.
Well, I would say that CISA is a great place to look. They have hygiene guidelines. I mean, they're very much like CIS and NIST, but they're sort of distilled down for business owners to be able to get going, right? I mean, some have no idea what to do. That's one of them. There's also some repositories where businesses can get the information, some real-time threat information, and they can even get assessments from the government. They'll come in and they'll help you with a basic sort of assessment to give you an idea of where to go. And that's just a phone call, and oftentimes it's free, right? I mean, so they'll come around to your office, help you out with what I'd say at least a basic assessment, a threat assessment of your environment, and get you pointed in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Over to you,
Ravi.
Honestly, it's a pet peeve of mine. I think the government needs to do way more. I don't have a security guard standing outside my house protecting it. We're just behind on that. And every forum and every platform I have, I keep saying that we're soon going to run out of where an individual company is going to be able to protect itself. Period. End of story.
I am in total agreement with Ravi. Like, you cannot expect the private sector to consistently defend against nation states who have unlimited resources. This is a policy problem and not something that we can individually solve.
Yeah, and it's not a business attacking a business. It's a nation state with state-sponsored resources attacking a business. So how does a business defend against it? So, anyway.
Right.
Well, let me just add one point. There's some discussion about separating the NSA, the NSA from Cyber Command. So there might be some opportunities there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, we are presenting this program in partnership with Georgia Tech and University of South Carolina, Beaufort, and Clark Atlanta University and Augusta University. So we have lots of speakers also representing these fine institutions. The key question comes, which was earlier raised by another speaker earlier, that we are running short in terms of developing our cybersecurity force. And what have you seen? What kind of shortage you experience in your hiring processes, or the specialists which you want to hire? And how do you think, what would be our friendly suggestion to our partners, educational partners, that how can they cope up to provide those kind of skill set enabled employees sooner, faster? Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, right. So what I like to do is look for characteristics in people. So again, intellectual curiosity, critical thinking, imagination, enthusiasm, those types of things. You heard it earlier that it isn't just an engineer that's capable of contributing to cybersecurity. It's someone with the characteristics that many of those that I just mentioned, because we need a variety of thought types brought to bear to get at the solution. It isn't just all coding or all router configuration or all software configs. It's having the mindset that helps you to identify, hey, here's a problem, here's something we need to take a look at or do something with, or I've got this particular problem, I'm looking at it, and the experiences I have are helping me to solve it. And I'm not a traditionally trained engineer. So I would dare say, look to pull in more people. NYU Tandon has a cyber bridge program. They'll take people with no background in cybersecurity and get you trained up, right? Because we've got a lot of people that are out of jobs, and then we've got an area that has a resource shortage. We got to figure out how to fix that. Over to you.
Great, Ravi.
Yeah, this is one where it's just hard to find talent, so we end up outsourcing it a lot. Where we have found talent, in one or two cases, I found that somebody who has this characteristic of being very focused on educating and building awareness with the rest of the company and tends to be very successful, versus somebody who's implementing tools without too much empathy. Because then what happens is you bring in somebody who's really good at cybersecurity, but all they do is they create friction for everybody else, right? And you have engineers complaining that their desktops are now slower, or their workstations are slower, or you have executives complaining that their emails, critical emails, are quarantined. I mean, there's just silly stuff because you got somebody who's trying to protect the company but doesn't know what it's doing to other people. So I think awareness of other people's workflows and a little empathy and passion for educating them about why stuff in cybersecurity is important are things I look for.
Right, great. Sandro?
Yeah. The grand irony here is that while this is something that requires, like we think it requires a ton of technical skill, the most valuable things are the soft skills. Like you need somebody who can collaborate, you need somebody who can understand, you need folks who can build alliances, go through our organizations and help, like show that security is a verb and not a noun. And that's something that everyone needs to do. And it's hard. It's hard to find that.
Right. Okay. It is my impression that we as a country are running behind in terms of artificial intelligence and the kind of R&D which is being done by other countries, namely, let's say Israel or China. Would you like to comment on that in general?
Right now, China is poised to win the AI game. Let's just be clear. However, they might implode with everything that they are doing to themselves. And so who knows, but they are ahead of us on AI.
Okay. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I had a chance to go to Israel for the first cyber tech series of conferences, and they have a very vibrant ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And I think we've got to find a way to invigorate or build out that same type of thing. Because innovation resides there. Again, innovation isn't limited just to someone who's formally trained as an engineer. It's all about the idea, and then it's all about building a team. And I think the things that Alejandro was speaking to are very important. I mean, it isn't that, hey man, I'm the geekiest geek that knows the latest commands backward and forward. It's how do you relate to people, because we've got to get something done. This is not an individual sport, an individual contributing sport. I mean, it's a team effort. Collaboration is huge.
Yeah, and to Robert's point, there's a book I'd recommend to anyone called Startup Nation. If you really want to understand the mindset of what Israel has done and why they've fostered the kind of innovation that they've been able to do, so it's a wonderful read. And for those of you with less patience like me, you can Blinkist it or look at a summary, but it's an incredible book.
Yeah, great, wonderful. So I see that there are several questions in the chat box. One of them is from Mr. Jeff Katz from IBM. He's raised some very good points and questions. And his last one, which I just read, is several of the topics on this webinar are very serious. For example, cyber is a part of modern military, not a non-functional requirement, as it may also. So what do you think, this goes back to my earlier question, what do you think the government is doing to safeguard the private sector? See, the big companies, the Georgia Techs of the world or CDCs of the world are very well protected. But mid-sized companies having an R&D or IP, which is likely to be stolen by, state or non-state actors, how do you prevent that? Go ahead, Alejandro, Robert.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think eventually some consolidation is going to happen. I mean, there's a move to bring things into the cloud. And again, I guess if you were a cloud provider, you would say, hey, if you can provide the tools, techniques, process, or people, process, and technology in a large scale, and essentially inoculate the environment, then you have less to rely on. There's less of a threat surface exposed in the hands of the individual. So I think that's probably their angle on it. I think the government is going to have to do something. I mean, I'm not exactly sure whether it's standing up an organization that provides the kind of monitoring and cyber hygiene and risk management that you get from an entrepreneurs like ourselves, but it's clear that we've got to do something because the risks are huge. And when you say supply chain, I mean, that includes companies like Target that had that breach back there that with the HVAC vendor, that classifies as a supply chain breach. So you're seeing that it does spread across everything, and many companies just don't have the resource or the awareness. It's all about, hey, what is cybersecurity and what does it cost? How do I apply it? And they're just not focused on. They're focused on their business. Say it that simply.
Right. Ravi?
I think the legal framework in terms of how do you hold people accountable, how do you persecute people, that also needs to go through a sea of change, right? Right now, it's so hard. How many judges are out there who are qualified to try a case around cybersecurity? How many prosecutors are out there who know how to build a case for a cybersecurity issue? So there's a lot that has to change very rapidly for enough consequence to be there to put enough fear in the hearts and minds of cyber criminals. Because right now, there's very little of it.
Right. And there are a couple of remarks in the chat box here about IT, innovation in Israel, on IT innovation in Israel. I have had the honor of visiting Ben Gurion University in 2004 or 5 at the invitation of AJC, and it was mind-boggling. It was so exciting to be there. I'm talking about 2004. And after that they have done a lot. Why can't we have a university focused on this? I know Dr. McIntyre mentioned about Cybersecurity College in Georgia Tech, and Augusta College has, cybersecurity is also there. But I'm talking about, and Clark Atlanta has now IBM program. How can we evangelize this further at the speed with which the problem is coming? And I see that Dr. Olu has raised his hand. Dr. Olu, I recognize you, please, sir.
Thank you very much, Ani. I do believe all the panelists have done very well on this. Like the question you raised, partnership is very, very essential, because for small companies to be able to be agile and be able to do things very well, that partnership is very essential, and they can rely on academics. But with the new partnership we just have with IBM, the resources and things, CAU couldn't have been able to afford it in 10 or 15 years. But like the way cyber attack comes, when a person do wait and see, it's already too late. One have to be aggressive about it. We call it cyber hunting. Just like Jeff have already alluded to from the IBM in some of the chat area, those items like using the Q radar to be able to go after the bad guys or to sense what is there. In real life, for university, now they can collaborate with those smaller businesses to be able to train the students on how to help them, not to hack them per se, because ethics comes in also. These are things like a company like IBM can collaborate with small businesses. It may cost them, but again, it's better to get safe, because nearly all companies are being hacked depending on the level of the danger that is already been done. But when board members begin to complain about shareholders and things like that, then it's too late at that very particular time. So my suggestion is collaboration with university like Savannah, Georgia Tech, of course, CAU will be willing to partner also, but more so to have a player like IBM. I know other company. It's not that I'm just advertising IBM. I can only speak of our experience.
Right.
They've already empowered the students with certification. So if you are looking for new talents through the IBM Skill Academy, there are key workforce development that is going on right now through the IBM initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. So I take back session to my three speakers of the session. Sometime back, while doing research for this program, I read that there was an interview recently by the CEO of Colonial Pipeline, and why he authorized payoff. Or, we know that some of the counties in our city were also compromised, and some healthcare systems also, and they have to end up paying money to bad guys. In some cases, it is recovered or not. But what do you think about, Ravi, I'm going to put you on a spot here. You are in a top leadership position of your company. If unfortunately something like this happens to you or somebody else, what is your option?
See, the unfortunate part of it is the way insurance works. You're almost, your path of least resistance is to pay if you've got good insurance, and most of us now do. And so that's part of what's become it's almost become a vicious cycle of, more breaches happen, insurance costs go up, but everybody needs insurance. And the more insurance you have, hackers literally now know when they're attacking somebody, how much insurance they have and what they can pay. So they target people who got good insurance. They don't target somebody you cannot pay. And then you pay. In turn, again, the prices go up. So it's become a stupid, vicious cycle that we're all caught in. Long answer, but short answer is, yeah, I'd probably just pay up and get out of the situation.
Right, exactly. Robert, I see that you're smiling.
I mean, the truth is you can pay up and not get the intended outcome, right? I mean, so really it's just a matter of what do you think is going to happen? I mean, you're talking about trusting some criminals. So I think it all comes down to if there's a situation that's serious enough, and as you said, if you got some insurance, you're advised against paying. I mean, it's clearly the advice is to not pay, but it's all about the risk that you're facing. And if it's certainly a life or death type situation, hospital facility, within that nature, critical infrastructure where some catastrophe could occur, I mean, that has to be on the table. Paying has to be one of the options that's strongly considered.
Yeah. Now, backup is key, right? So I think that's pretty obvious for everybody. But if you don't have a good vaulting strategy, then that's your best insurance against being able to pay, because you can go back to something.
Great. Well, with this, I thank three of you, Robert, Alejandro, and Ravi, for having an interesting discussion. Thankfully, we had some time. And I would like to turn it over to Dr. McIntyre and Dr. Canada for Q&A session, which is the last session, and request all the speakers to be on the screen, please.